It was a quiet morning in Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso. Ibrahim was sitting at his desk flipping through a report. The window beside him let in a slow breeze, calm, undisturbed. Then Marie walked in. She didn't knock. She didn't wait. "You need to hear this," she said, holding out her phone. Ibrahim looked up. Her tone was sharp. "What is it?" Marie's eyes didn't blink. "Michelle Obama called," she said. "Barack mentioned you on stage." There was silence. Ibrahim leaned back in his chair. Why now? Why him? And what did Obama have to say? A storm was coming. Marie placed the phone on the table and pressed play. A video loaded. The voice was clear. Barack Obama stood behind a podium in a large auditorium filled with students, diplomats, and world leaders. He said, "There is a young captain in Africa who's challenging not only dictators but the very structure of how leadership is defined." Whispers filled the room. Obama continued, "He's not perfect, but he represents something real, something the world is not ready for." Audience froze and then applause. Obama had just put the spotlight on Traore not as an enemy, but as a symbol of change. Within hours, the video spread like wildfire. Hashtags started trending. Hashtag Captain of Africa, hash respect Traore, hash new voice of the South News. Anchors debated, why would Obama acknowledge him? Crowds gathered outside the presidential compound in Ouagadougou. People held banners. "We see you, Ibrahim. Africa is not silent." Global youth shared clips of Traore visiting villages, talking to farmers, standing with miners, walking through muddy roads in sandals. While wearing his uniform, he wasn't acting for the cameras. He was living the life they only spoke about. Traore didn't say a word. He sat alone in his room that night, lights off, no guards, no cameras, just him and the echo of Obama's words. Thought of Sankara, he thought of Lumumba, he thought of all the African voices silenced before they were ever heard, and now somehow the world was listening, not to power but to presence. He whispered to himself, "It's not me they fear, it's the idea." The next morning, Ibrahim called for a press conference. The room was packed, cameras, journalists, diplomats. He stepped up to the mic, calm, focused. "I heard what Mr. Obama said, and I thank him." A pause. "But let me be clear, Africa does not need to be saved. It needs to be respected." Silence. Then a wave of murmurs, then applause. He continued, "Our children don't need handouts. They need their history back. They need their dignity restored." He announced a new program that day, The Roots of Gold, a national youth initiative teaching children African history, leadership, and community building. No foreign aid, no outside control, just pride and purpose. 1 week later, a woman named Fatu from a small village in the east sent a letter. Inside was a photo of her and 20 other women. They had built a well by hand with no machines, no outside funding, just tools and fire. She wrote, "You gave us the courage to stop waiting. We are building our village with the strength we forgot we had." And then came Mamadou, a boy no older than 8. He walked barefoot for miles to deliver a small box to the capital. Inside, a hand-carved wooden lion, on it a note, "For the man who woke us up." Obama was in New York when he watched the clip of Ibrahim's press conference. He smiled slightly. "He's bold," he whispered to Michelle. Journalists asked Obama, "Do you regret praising him?" Obama replied, "No, because whether you agree with him or not, he's making the world think, and that's leadership." Meanwhile, youth movements in Ghana, Nigeria, South Africa began their own versions of Roots of Gold. The hashtag Respect for Africa flooded social platforms. Western commentators clashed. "He's dangerous. He's inspiring. He's what we need." The world was no longer watching Traore out of curiosity. They were watching out of necessity. 1 month later, Ibrahim gave a closing speech at a youth summit held in an open stadium. Tens of thousands were present, some barefoot, some in suits. All silent, he walked slowly to the podium. No teleprompter, no notes, just his voice. "When I was a child, we were told that our dreams needed a visa, that our voices needed permission, that our history was someone else's property." He looked at the crowd. "But Today I say to you no more." He raised the small wooden lion Mamadou gave him. "This lion is not a gift, it is a mirror. It shows us who we are when we stop waiting to be accepted." He turned toward the camera and to those watching from across the oceans. "From big houses with small hearts, understand this. You are living proof that we are building something bigger than ourselves." The stadium erupted not just with noise, but with history. Africa had spoken, and this time the world listened. There was a long silence in the room. Traore stood still. He didn't blink, didn't speak, didn't even nod. His mind was already far away, not in Ouagadougou, not even in Africa. He was back in the sand-swept classrooms of Gawa boy with no shoes, reciting history from torn notebooks. A child who had memorized the names of revolutionaries before he knew how to spell government. But now Obama's name was ringing in his ears, not from a textbook, but from his assistant, from Marie, from the present. He didn't insult you, sir, Marie clarified gently, but he questioned your readiness, your vision, he said, and I quote, "Burkina Faso needs guidance, not defiance." Traore finally moved, a slow turn, eyes narrowed. "Is there a video?" he asked. Marie nodded. Within minutes the projector hummed to life. A screen lit up. The World Leadership Forum logo shimmered in white and blue. The stage was polished, the crowd international, and there stood Barack Obama, calm, charismatic, charming as ever. "And while we applaud the courage of Africa's youth," he was saying, "let us also remember that courage must walk hand in hand with caution. Leadership is not rebellion, it is responsibility." Then he paused, looked up, and said the name clearly. "Even my young brother in Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traoré, must know it. It's not about how loud you roar, it's about how long your legacy echoes." The room in Ouagadougou went cold. Marie's breath caught, but Traoré chuckled, not loud, just once, like thunder murmuring deep beneath the earth. "So," he whispered, "he thinks I am noise." Marie looked at him nervously, but Traoré's face didn't carry anger, it carried something heavier, certainty. "Marie," he said, calm but sharp, "prepare the courtyard. We will speak tomorrow, not to answer a man, but to wake a continent." By dawn the presidential courtyard was filled. Students, elders, journalists, farmers, people wearing woven hats and faded uniforms, mothers with babies, youth with fire in their eyes. They had heard the whispers, they had seen the clips. Obama mentioned him. He challenged Traoré. Is this a battle of words or of worlds? Social media boiled #TRA or eAcute responds #respect Africa #young lion vs eagle. Even the BBC and Al Jazeera had sent cameras not for gossip, but for history. And then he walked in, no suit, no gold pins, no army behind him, just Ibrahim Traoré in his brown fatigues with a single mitch, stood, took a moment, then began. "Brothers, sisters, and those who still believe that Africa needs permission to rise, I greet you with respect." The crowd stayed silent. Every phone was recording, every ear sharp. I heard the words of a former president, a man who once carried the hopes of many, including mine, but today I do not stand here to defend myself, I stand to defend a truth. The world says we must be patient, that leadership must move slow like honey in winter, but tell me, when were they ever patient with us? Were they patient when they took our gold, our children, our breath? We are not noise, we are the echo of centuries. Crowd, hey, I do not seek to impress Obama, I seek to liberate Fatu, the woman rebuilding her village with her bare hands, because aid never arrived. I fight. For Mama Tuho made me a drawing of Africa holding a sword, because even our children dream of fighting back. The courtyard broke into applause. He let it rise, then raised his hand gently. Silence returned. Obama is not the enemy, but his view is blurred by the comfort of power, by rooms where hunger is just a report, not a smell. So I say this not to him, but to every African youth watching. You were not born to wait, you were born to wake the lion. The crowd erupted. Twitter exploded. YouTube clips hit 1 million views in 3 hours, and in the U.S., in a quiet room in Chicago, Barack Obama Watch the reply, hands clasped, eyes still, and for the first time he smiled with a hint of all well. He whispered, "The boy is not noise, he's a Drummond. Africa is marching to his beat. Zara Sadiq by Ya Raha Part 3, final part of your full 3,000-word cinematic Griot-style script. The moment Ibrahim Traoré outclassed Obama on live stage. Simple words, know your mention, emotional African. Poetic style, direct continuation and ending included as requested. The speech had ended, but the silence that followed was louder than thunder. Ibrahim Traoré didn't wait for claps, he didn't wave, he simply stepped back, looked once at the faces in front of him, then walked away. The cameras kept rolling. The people, they didn't move, something had shifted. A leader had not just spoken, he had declared not war but independence of thought. Marie followed him quietly back into the main hall. She didn't speak, she didn't need to. Traoré sat down, eyes still burning with something ancient, not anger, not pride, but clarity. Send a press release, he said finally. Let the world know we will not be explaining our dignity anymore. The press room filled quickly. Within the hour, lights were on, microphones ready, journalists from every flag you can name were present, and when Traoré appeared on stage, he did not speak in defense, he spoke as a man who had already won. Africa does not need to be saved, he said calmly. It needs to be understood, and above all, it must be respected. Reporters raised hands, cameras flashed. What do you say to the Western critics who fear your approach? Someone asked. Traoré smiled, slow and firm. They fear what they don't control, and what they don't understand they label dangerous. But I am not dangerous, I am free, and to the powerful freedom always looks like a threat. The people answered with their feet. The next day villages were alive with movement. In the northern desert, Fatu was seen organizing women to plant solar lamps. She tied a red cloth on her head, looked at the camera and said, "He said my name, that's enough for me to fight for 50 more years." In the south, young Mamadou walked barefoot to the capital holding his hand-drawn flag, a lion with broken chains. When asked why, he simply said, "He listened to us, now the world will listen to him." Meanwhile, in the West, CNN flashed a headline, "Africa answers back Traoré's speech sets." Social media ablaze. The Economist tried to analyze it. The Atlantic tried to soften it. Fox tried to ignore it, but it was too late. Hashtag storm the net. Hashtag voice of Africa. #TRA or acute. Vs Obama. #respect or step aside. Harvard students in black suits were seen quoting his speech at rallies. Africa was not born to beg. Colleges from Nigeria to Jamaica replayed his full speech in auditoriums. Even former African diplomats who had stayed quiet for years now spoke up. He said what we whispered for decades. And Obama, he sat quietly in his private office, no lights, just the soft glow of a laptop. He watched Traoré again, this time no pride, no defense, only reflection. Michelle walked in behind him. "You okay?" she asked. Obama nodded, then whispered, "He didn't outclass me. He outclassed the system that raised me." He clicked pause and for a long time said nothing. Back in Ouagadougou, the people kept moving. Traoré stood once more before the nation, this time not to answer anyone, but to seal something, a message, a momentum mission. He looked into the lens, not at Obama, not at the West, but at every child across Africa who ever felt too poor to matter. They asked if I was too young, he began, too raw, too loud, and maybe I am. But I would rather be loud and alive than silent and shackled. We are not waiting anymore, not for foreign approval, not for applause. Let the world know we are not rising, we are returning to who we always were before they drew borders, before they wrote books without our names. So to my brothers and sisters in power, and to those who still whisper doubt from behind suits and flags, I say this. And then he paused, looked deep into the camera like he could see through the screen. Then he spoke, not in fire, but in truth. You are living proof that we are building something bigger than ourselves. The screen faded to black. Africa did not blink. The lion had roared, and the world had finally heard. The lion had spoken. The world had listened. But now it's your turn. If you believe Ibrahim Traoré is not just a name but a movement, if you believe Africa doesn't need saving, it needs respect, do this now. Like this video to support real African leaders. Subscribe if you believe the world needs to hear more voices like Traoré. Share this with someone who still believes we are powerless, because we are not weak, we are just waking up. Like for true leadership, share for African truth. Humiliate, respect for Traoré if you stand with the lion.